course, recording, so you can rewatch some of it, or if you people who've missed it. But yeah, Jamie Robinson. Jamie is the technical lead at Safe System Solutions, and formerly the technical lead traffic engineering and design at VicRoads, Victorian government there for quite a while, and is a very experienced road safety auditor, and does a lot of design guidance and technical reviews and the like. And so I asked Jamie to come along and present this session for a number of reasons. Firstly, so it's not just me talking to you. Secondly, it's because of his wealth of knowledge around those technical specifics, and also the fact that yeah, he's got this wide range of auditing background. So I'll often do those detailed design road safety audits with Jamie, and it's really wonderful to bounce ideas off, and we look at it slightly differently, which is a great asset to the audit. So Jamie's going to take you through some design stage audits. I think we've got a hand raised. I'm going to see if that, Robert, is a hand raised that you want to talk, or if it's just an accidental hand raise. I'll pause for a second. Actually, no, I'll press the OK. So it says you're using an older version of Zoom. Sorry, I'm just trying to get that to happen. No, Robert, oh, here we go. Now, Robert's just appearing. Hopefully it was that you want to ask a question or say something. Your audio is connecting. But Jamie, you can work on your slides in the background while we see if Robert's audio is connecting. Or it might have been an accidental hand up. But you have the ability to share your slides there, Jamie?
Yeah, coming through now, Ken.
Good. And we've got Robert there. Robert, did you want to say something, or was it an accidental hand up? I'm going to take it as an accidental hand up. Oh, no. Lines are bubbling away. Jamie, we're seeing your notes. So if you want to go up to that display settings up the top there, and go swap presenter up the top left.
Left.
Yeah, right a bit, right a bit. Yep, click on that and go to the drop down.
There we go.
That's it. Well done.
Thank you.
I'm going to okay, let's jump into it. We'll see if Robert wants to talk a little bit later on. Over to you, Jamie.
Thanks, Ken, and good morning, everyone. So I'm going to be talking to you about road safety audits at the detailed design end of projects, and with a focus on heavy vehicles as well. Why heavy vehicles? I hear you ask. Heavy vehicles dictate a lot of the design elements that feed into our geometric road designs. They're also highly overrepresented in the crash problem on the network, so it really is important that we get things right when we're designing to those types of vehicles. But to start with, I wanted to discuss the difference between a standards review or a design review and a road safety audit. Often we as consultants are asked to do one or the other. Sometimes a client isn't sure which one they need. The key difference is that a standards review won't necessarily pick up issues related to safety, whereas as an auditor, you really are concerned about whether there's a safety issue associated with an issue that you've identified, which could be a departure from standards, and what you might do about it. Designing something in accordance with standards will typically lead to a safer outcome, but it won't necessarily eliminate all safety issues. So as an auditor, you're really thinking about, if there is a departure from standards, is that a safety concern? What could go wrong? What's the expected crash type? And so on. when you're doing a road safety audit, and particularly one at the detailed design end of the spectrum, you'll receive a set of drawings, and it could be quite a hefty set. In addition to that, there's some other information that you may or may not be provided with, which might include the design vehicles. So that's details of the largest vehicles expected to use the piece of road that you're looking at. There may be multiple design vehicles. There may be certain vehicles that undertake certain movements and not others. So you might have a different design vehicle for different parts of the road or undertaking different movements. The speed is the other critical element that feeds in to the geometric design of a road. So the design vehicle together with the design speed dictates lots of those geometric elements. It is important to note that the design speed is not necessarily the same as the posted speed limit. It's typically the case in rural environments, especially, that motorists will travel at speeds higher than the posted speed. So we really are, when we're looking at designing roads, we're catering to that design or operating speed. So that's the key speed that we're concerned with typically. Vehicle swept paths should be checked as an integral part of the development of a road design. You may be presented with a set of swept path diagrams to demonstrate that that's been done. You may receive some traffic data around the volumes of vehicles, and if you're lucky, the types of vehicles present at a site or expected to use a new piece of road. You may receive some pedestrian and cyclist data. You may be provided with some crash details or decide to access publicly available crash data to have a think about what has happened at a site in the past. Now, it is important when you do that you don't go into an audit with the blinkers on, so to speak, and think that the crashes that have happened in the past are the only ones that might happen going forward. Some auditors that I know prefer not to see the crash history of the site so that they're not influenced by it. I do like to have it, but just be aware that there often is a randomness to the types and locations of crashes that occur. But certainly if there is a trend of a certain type of crash or a road user involved in crashes, that can be a pointer to issues at the site. If any previous audits have been undertaken, it's a good idea to obtain those reports. You can tick off any issues that may have been addressed, or if you think there are issues that haven't been addressed that are still relevant, you may choose to reiterate those in your detailed design stage audit. In addition to this, as an auditor, you should feel free to request any information that you think would help you understand the project and its context. So if a client's not forthcoming with this information and you think it would be useful to you, I encourage you to ask for it. I'd like to step you through a few common issues that we often come across when we're undertaking audits. A number of those are around the vehicles on which the design is based. So the design may not cater to vehicles or to an appropriate design vehicle. And this is probably a good point to talk about what is a design vehicle. Design vehicle is the largest vehicle expected to use a piece of road on a regular basis. So it's typically a truck or perhaps a bus that will use that piece of road, I suppose, frequently. We also talk about checking vehicles. A checking vehicle is a larger vehicle, again, that we may want to check that the design can cater for. So the check vehicle is typically one that is expected to use a road fairly infrequently. Infrequently enough that we don't design the road specifically for it, but we do need to cater for its movements. A check-in vehicle typically isn't expected to make turns necessarily from the appropriate lane. They might be allowed to swing across the carriageway in order to make the turn that they need to. they may be allowed to encroach curbed areas. But if that's the case, that might influence the placement of roadside furniture on those behind those curbs. A checking vehicle might come along under an escort or something like that. So we need to allow for it, but not design our pavement areas based on it. You can get out on site. We're talking about design stage audits, but most design projects are upgrades to existing roads. So you can put yourself out on site, observe the types of vehicles that are getting about, look at the surrounding land use, and think about if there are any changes likely to the land use that might attract some larger vehicles, which might lead you to adopt a larger design vehicle. So we've talked about the issue that a design doesn't cater adequately to the swept paths of a certain vehicle. Well, what does it matter? As an auditor, you need to think about what's the associated issue and safety concern. So if the design doesn't cater to those larger vehicles, the result might be that those larger trucks encroach into areas that they shouldn't, such as adjacent traffic lanes, which could result in side swipes, perhaps head-on crashes, even if it's an opposing traffic lane. Those vehicles might encroach into pedestrian areas. You might see vehicle conflicts between opposing right turns, for instance. And a telltale sign that there isn't enough space for larger vehicles is impacts with roadside furniture. You might also see tyre marks over curbs and these type of things. So when you're out on site doing an audit inspection, pay attention to these types of things. Now, that list of issues is all around there not being enough space for larger vehicles. The opposite can also be an issue. If too much space is provided as a result of adopting too large a design vehicle, that can open up the possibility of smaller vehicles taking corners at excessive speeds and so on. Too large a design vehicle leads to larger pavement areas, which might be hard to delineate. There are a range of issues associated with adopting too large a design vehicle as well. There's lots of guidance in the Austroad suite around catering to turning vehicles, particularly at intersections. A couple of snips here from the Austroad's Guide to Road Design, and on the right, the Austroad's Turning Templates Guide. And a few key things to note with these are the nominated radii. For particular vehicles, there are minimum and desirable radii for those vehicles to make turns at. A good swept path diagram will be transparent and will nominate the radius that's been adopted to generate that turn. Some other things that you'll see there are some clearances between opposing swept paths, 2 metres in the case there of the opposing right turns. On the right-hand side, we see a swept path diagram for, I think it's a 19-metre semi-trailer, which might be on a 20-metre radius. Now, each radius, and there are a few given for each vehicle, each radius corresponds to a turning speed. In the case of the semi-trailer on the right, we have a 20-metre radius, which corresponds to a turning speed of about 15 or 20 kilometres per hour. That's not a radius it's certainly not a minimum radius. That's a radius that you might adopt at a location such as a signalised right turn, where a truck might arrive on the green and make the turn with some speed. We can wind things down and adopt minimum radii at mandatory stop situations. And really, that's the only time that we should adopt the bare minimum radius for a vehicle turn. So here's an example of a swept path diagram at a cross intersection. You can see one shown in purple and another from blue for the concurrent right turns from opposing directions. Clearly, it's a highly constrained site. You can see the property boundaries around the corners there, and not much room to spare between the property boundaries and our curbs. We have a clearance in the middle between those opposing swept paths. So at first glance, you might think that that looks okay, but if you study the purple one in particular a bit more closely, you'll see some funny things happening. One of the telltale signs is these little arrowheads that I hope you can make out along the centre line of the purple vehicle path. Each of those arrowheads basically represents a mouse click or a change in direction as that path has been generated. The desirable way of doing things would be to construct that turning path on a single radius, a radius that accords with the Austroad's guidance. And if that had been done in this case, you would have seen that swept path extend much further into the intersection and overlap the swept path of the truck from the opposite direction. So this really is a bit of a case of back to front design. An intersection has been drawn that fits within the available space, and some swept paths have been put on top of that, and an attempt has been made to show that things will work. What should happen is that the swept path should be generated as an integral part of the design process, and the intersection should be drawn around those swept paths. And islands and medians and all of these types of things should fit around those swept paths. As an auditor, you might say, well, what's the issue here? The swept path hasn't been drawn in accordance with standards, but what could go wrong? Well, if the signal phasing allowed it, there would be a potential conflict between opposing right turning trucks at this location. The risk of that happening will depend obviously on the traffic volumes at this site, the likelihood of two trucks of this type arriving at the same time. You would hope that one of those drivers would see the situation unfold and put on the brakes. So perhaps there's not a great safety issue here. The decision may have been made to accept the risk associated with this. An alternative would be to adjust the signal phasing to prevent or at least minimise the likelihood of this situation happening.
So, Jamie, a couple of things, if I can jump in there. One is just if you are using your mouse to hover over things, we're not seeing that. It must be on the other screen. Now we can see it. Yeah, right. That's it. The other one, Bob's just popped in there. Design swept path simulation should allow for a body clearance, which I assume is the outer lines on that. Is that right?
That's right. Thanks, Bob. There are lots of lines happening here, and it is important to know what's what. It's typical to show a clearance to the outer extremity of the vehicle path of 0.5 metre. So that's this outermost, you can sort of see two solid lines on either side of the swept path. The outermost line of those two is a clearance line to the body of the vehicle. And it is required that you provide that 0.5 metre clearance to curbs and roadside, other roadside objects. So you've got a clearance line, a line to the outer extent of the vehicle body. Some of these dashed lines are wheel paths. It can be important to show wheel paths, perhaps at a location such as a bus stop where we might allow overhang of the curb, but it's important that the wheels of the bus, the manoeuvre can be made with the wheels not encroaching the curb. It's possible to turn on and off these different features when you're generating these swept paths. So it is important to understand what you're looking at and which are the important lines.
So, okay, let's take this one. And so first question I've got is, why would somebody sort of produce this? I mean, why not just have them overlap? Can can you hypothesize on the reasoning behind the production of this little diagram?
Yeah, look, if I was being cynical, I would say that someone has generated this in an attempt to make it look like the intersection has been well designed and will work as it should. Sometimes a designer will prepare a diagram like this to essentially demonstrate that the intersection design isn't great. They'll say, well, this is what would need to happen for a vehicle to make the manoeuvre, and think about, you know, how bad that is and what issues might be associated with it.
So then if, another question, as a road safety auditor, will you run your own swept paths on every design that comes in, or will you ask for theirs and take them, or will you just spot odd irregularities? How does that all play out?
Yeah, so an auditor would rarely, if ever, generate swept paths themselves. You would review the swept paths that were provided to you and comment on those. You can quickly get a feel for how well things have been done by the style of the swept path diagrams or the plans that they're presented on, whether they're transparent with information around radius and turning speed and these types of things. So certainly if I was undertaking an audit on this particular design, I would query the way that swept path has been generated, identify the potential issues associated with it, and suggest that the swept paths be checked again in accordance with the Austroads methodology.
Okay. So what if you ask for swept? So you get a design to audit and they don't give you any swept paths, and you ask for swept paths and they say we don't have any. What would you do there?
Yeah, that's a bit of a red flag. If a designer can't readily provide swept path diagrams, it suggests that they haven't undertaken that as part of their design. So yeah, they've determined a layout based on, you know, experience or guesswork. So you would hope that the swept paths have been checked. Again, is that an integral part of the design process, and could very readily be provided.
And there's a question that's come in around the driver of the purple vehicle. How in this situation would they be alerted to the fact that they're going to potentially overlap or going to have to take some sort of awkward cautionary maneuvers? Is there a sign for that, or anything we could do?
Good point. They probably wouldn't be alerted to that fact. I'm not sure how you could do that. If you're allowing those two right turns to occur concurrently, a driver would reasonably expect to make the turn on basically a single radius, as they would do at any other intersection along this route, and probably not realise until they're in the middle of the intersection that there isn't the space to do that, and they're in a potential conflict situation.
Yeah. Okay. Good. No, thank you. And I think for everybody, I mean, it's worth us spending a little time on this, because I think it's an example, and especially if you end up, doing a lot of the developer road safety audits, you may come across this sort of stuff where they're obviously constrained and there's huge dollars associated with trying to get more size and the like, and things are being squeezed, and people may be justifying it in their mind of, oh no, it'll be obvious, and low vehicles. But as an auditor, really it's our job to identify these issues, present them clearly, make sure everybody's aware of them, nothing sort of hidden at all, and then appropriate decisions can be made by the developer and the road authority and the like. But yeah, we don't want it to look like everything's all fine when in fact there may be some issues. And I think Jamie recognised that well. I mean, this looks pretty bad. It would be fairly slow. It would be rare. So, in a risk assessment perspective, you may not put that, you definitely wouldn't be putting it as in, intolerable style risks, but it just needs to be flagged for people to consider properly. Thanks, Jamie. Keep ticking along, please. And keep the questions coming in, everyone.
So if you're undertaking an audit, certainly there is a potential safety issue associated with the conflict between those concurrently turning vehicles within the section. A couple of things that a standards review or a design review might pick up that an audit wouldn't would relate to the fact that the signal conduits here are shown to pass outside of the road reserve, which is a no-no, but that doesn't have any safety implications. Another potential safety issue at the top left corner here is the lack of space available for a pedestrian footpath at that corner of the intersection. This is another design that we actually inherited, and I suppose it goes to show that there are some differing opinions around the application of swept paths in the industry. A design had been produced based on some swept paths. Essentially, the designer had assumed that if they could generate a swept path in a particular way, then the vehicle could make that movement and the design would be okay, sort of without due regard to the Austroad's requirements. We found that when we generated some swept paths at desirable radii and turn speeds and so on, things didn't work at all. And you can see here with the blue swept path, the left turn, which is by a bus coming from the south, that movement encroaches significantly into this pedestrian area here. So there's a risk to any pedestrian waiting at that corner. This, unlike the previous swept path drawing, is more transparent. You can see the type of vehicle nominated here, which in this case is a 14.5 metre bus. The radius is detailed on the plans. Again, we have lots of lines happening with representing wheel paths, vehicle extremities, and then that offset line on the outside again. Some other movements at the same intersection show that there's quite an overlap between those vehicle swept paths that would be allowed to make those turns concurrently. So it is possible to fudge things in the software, AutoTurn software that's used to generate swept paths. But if you're using AutoTurn or if you're reviewing swept path diagrams, do be mindful of the Austroad's guidance, the minimum radii, the clearance requirements between swept paths and so on. When you're on site, there are some telltale signs that there isn't enough space for turning vehicles and turning trucks in particular. One of those is encroachment on and beyond curbs, such as you can see here. Articulated trucks making that turn, tracking behind the curb, which is and on top of a pit here that you can see. It's a common scenario that curbs start to break up, pit lids break, and so on, and that can lead to a hazardous situation. It's not always the result of there not being enough space. Sometimes there can be issues with excessive speed at locations like this, or there can be a lack of advance warning or delineation to get heavy vehicles through that curve. Another example here at the Port of Melbourne, where we have a slip lane with a concrete pavement and a concrete island next to it that doesn't contrast at all from the road pavement. You can see a curb line here and a pedestrian crossing point here. Lots of tyre marks right over the top of those tiles at the pedestrian crossing point. At this location, it's been suggested to me that there's plenty of space for these larger trucks. It's just that they're in a hurry. There is an issue with excessive speed, but I'm certain that the lack of contrast in the different pavement areas there is a contributing factor. It may be difficult to make out where the road ends and the raised island starts. So there is a risk to pedestrians at this location. Perhaps here, although you'd hope that an approaching driver, and the direction of travel is towards us at this slip lane, you would hope that an approaching driver would see a pedestrian waiting here and choose not to take that path. It's more likely that a pedestrian on the other side would be struck by a long articulated vehicle. It can be very difficult for a truck driver to understand where their rear axles will end up. At low speeds, there's a significant cut-in effect where the rear axles take a shorter path, make the turn on a smaller radius. And unfortunately, there are cases each year where pedestrians waiting at street corners are struck by the trailers of trucks making those turns. Knockdown signs can be an indicator that there is a lack of space for turning vehicles, and particularly larger vehicles. It could be an indicator of a lack of delineation of that curb. Perhaps a hazard marker sign might have been appropriate here. Another common example is keep left signs on splitter islands that you frequently see knocked down, sometimes due to a lack of space for larger vehicles. Another issue that presents frequently is to do with sight lines. It can be the case that designs don't provide adequate sight distance for certain road users. You can check this at the desk. You can also put yourself out on site and have a think about whether adequate sight distance is available. There are a list of sight distance requirements as long as your arm. It's important for an auditor to have an awareness of relevant standards and guidelines when undertaking audits, not necessarily be an expert in them. Although that said, at the detailed design end of the spectrum, it is important to have, I guess, a subject matter expert involved. And that can depend on the nature of the project that's being audited. If there's a pedestrian and cyclist focus, it might be someone that has expertise in that area. If it's a geometric road design project, you might want someone involved that is perhaps a road designer and has good knowledge of sight distance requirements. So there might not be adequate sight distance between motorists, to pedestrians, perhaps waiting to cross the road. As an auditor, you can put yourself out there and attempt to cross the road at the required locations. Think about whether you would feel comfortable doing that, even before you've looked to the relevant standards. Think about, as a road user, whether you would feel safe making the required movements. If the answer is no, then look to a standard and see if you can back up your feelings by demonstrating that a standard isn't going to be met. Some things that can restrict sight lines and visibility include the road alignment, horizontal curves with obstructions on the inside of the curve, can have a significant effect on sight distance, vertical curves, crests as well. Combining horizontal and vertical curves is can lead to some significant issues, both in terms of sight distance obstruction and an increase in run-off road crash risk, and should be avoided as far as possible. At intersections, parked vehicles can be a big sight distance obstruction, along with other roadside furniture, utility poles, trees, letterboxes, all types of things that we find near intersection corners. And actually, that's a common black spot type project where parked vehicles are allowed to park very close to intersections, which restrict sight lines. Lots of cross traffic crashes can occur at those types of locations. Vehicle stand-up angles at intersections. It's desirable that, so by stand-up angle, we're talking about the angle at which a vehicle will approach an intersecting road. And it's desirable that that happens at a right angle or as close to a right angle as possible, which allows the motorist a good view to oncoming traffic and other road users in both directions. If the angle sort of becomes acute, it can be difficult for the motorist to look one way or the other, which can be particularly difficult for older motorists and motorists with mobility impairments. And we commonly see high crash rates at intersections where that angle does become acute. We talk about the Y intersection problem. One of the many sight distance requirements goes by the acronym SISD, and we might have a poll question here, I believe, Ken.
Yep, I think we do. Let's get it going. What does SISD stand for? Standard intersection sight distance, straight incline sight distance, safe intersection sight distance, somewhat impractical sight distance. Some good options there. So hopefully the poll popped up on your screen. It may have, it may not have. And remember, you're not marked on these, but it might be something similar in the quiz for you at the end of the session. Okay, well, most people have popped that in. So I think I'll end that, Jamie, and we'll display the results. Most people want to go with safe intersection sight distance. That's a pretty good answer,
right.
I reckon. Good. Yes, it is safe intersection sight distance.
So safe intersection sight distance is something that we look to provide at intersections, funnily enough. There are many sight distance requirements. You may have heard of approach sight distance, stopping sight distance. There's crossing sight distance for pedestrians. As I say, it is important to have an awareness of the various sight distance requirements and their applications. Safe intersection sight distance is particularly relevant to that issue of parked vehicles and roadside furniture obstructing sight lines at intersections. It provides enough time and space for a motorist on the main road to see a vehicle enter the intersection from the side road and perhaps stall at this location. It gives them enough time to react to that situation, put on the brakes and come to a stop before reaching that point. SISD requirements can be quite onerous. At 100 kilometres per hour, it's something like 260 or 270 metres required for safe intersection sight distance. And another thing that I'll point out here, there is a discrepancy between Austroads, what Austrode says and what certainly Victoria says with regard to the observation point for this vehicle on the side road, which is just a nice little reminder to always look to your state or jurisdiction supplement to the Austroads guide. Victoria has some hefty supplements, other states not so much. The supplements always take precedence over the Austroads guides. So I encourage you to look to if you're looking up an Austroads guide, always look to the jurisdictional supplement as well. Of course, with safe intersection sight distance and any sight distance, we need to look at things in the horizontal and vertical plane. Crests in particular can impede sight distance. a little example here of a road in Melbourne's north, which had quite a wide carriageway. And at times when parking demand was low, this road would operate with a 4-lane cross section, which was less than desirable. An attempt was made to sort of reduce the traffic function of the road, formalise parking by implementing some parking lanes. And you can see some yellow lines there indicating that. This treatment was implemented, and those parking lanes, as you can see here, extend up very close to the intersecting side roads. This treatment was put in place, and it actually encouraged more parking and parking right up to those intersecting roads. And an issue presented pretty quickly around cross-traffic crashes involving vehicles entering the main road from those side roads, and reduced sight distance was the key factor behind those crashes. You can see there a split second later, the car is upon you. Perhaps I'll put it out to the group there, Ken, as a sort of a retrofit. This has been put in. What could we now do to try and remedy this situation and improve safety for motorists entering from those side roads?
All right, let's see if anybody's got any ideas, any thoughts there. What could be done? Okay, a lot of people wanting to get rid of some parking there, Jamie. Often a bit of a challenge, isn't it, with local governments and removing parking?
It certainly can be. Look, that would certainly open up sightlines if you removed even 1 or 2 parking spaces. Can be easier said than done, but certainly that would help.
I'll give. How about this? We'll give a prize to somebody who comes up with an idea that doesn't involve removing, well, minimises parking removal. Okay. Luke's gone with curb build out and move giveaway line forward.
I like it.
Yeah, Luke gets a prize there. Yeah, a few others wanting to do it, do that as well. An interesting comment about replace with a stop sign. What are your thoughts on that, Jamie?
Yeah, that can help by a little bit. Putting a stop sign as opposed to a giveaway sign sort of, is the cue to motorists on the side road that sight distance isn't great and they should approach the intersection with a bit more caution. It doesn't affect the available sight distance, so its effect would be fairly minimal, but it's certainly a cheap and easy thing to do that might have some benefit.
Another one, Tim's talking about reducing the speed with traffic calming devices on the through road. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, that would certainly help. If we can slow traffic on the through road, our sight distance requirements, which are proportional to vehicle speeds, would reduce. So if we can slow those approaching vehicles, we're reducing the likelihood of conflict, and also if it was to occur, it'd be at lower speeds.
Yeah. Yes, which also links with Mohammed's comment about a raised intersection, very much the same there. And Ibrahim's commenting on possibly elevating the side road with the side distance issues to look over it, which would open up sightlines. Sounds very expensive, but we don't have any cost constraints at this stage, so happy to explore that. Good, thanks everybody for the input. Some good ideas there. Back to you, Jamie.
So I did mention that there are lots of different types of sight distance. It can be a bit confusing. I'm sure some of you are familiar with these, some of you are not. Stopping sight distance and approach sight distance are the sort of, I suppose, the most basic and essential of the sight distance requirements. They're actually numerically equal. The difference between the two is that stopping sight distance is measured from a driver eye height to an object on the road with an assumed height of 200 millimeters, which could be some sort of object, possibly a human body lying on the road. We need to provide SSD at any point along a roadway to allow motorists to react and stop in that situation. Approach sight distance is measured from the driver eye to the pavement level, and is particularly important at intersections and other locations where there are pavement markings that a motorist needs to be able to see and react to. Entering sight distance, manoeuvre sight distance, some of these are sort of more obscure ones and even the nice to haves. Overtaking sight distance obviously applies to two-lane roads in rural environments where we need to decide whether or not we're permitting overtaking with broken dividing lines or not. If overtaking sight distance isn't available, we will seek to deter that with solid line marking. CSD, crossing sight distance, is another one that we can add to the list there, which relates to pedestrians crossing the road to give them adequate time, adequate sight distance to judge an appropriate gap and make their movement across the road. I just wanted to touch briefly on rural and remote roads, such as this one here. They're probably not frequently subjected to road safety audits, but they do have, I guess, some unique challenges and some common issues that relate to them. Often we're talking about long lengths of road with generally straight alignments. It's curves in particular, crests and dips, so changes in the horizontal and vertical alignment that can and do result in crashes. So it's important to provide motorists with advance warning of those features, curve warning signs, guideposts and the like, signs related to crests and dips and so on. Surface condition and surface irregularities is another key contributor to issues on these roads. You can get corrugations, you can get slippery sections and so on. So there's an important need for an appropriate level of maintenance and to alert treatments to alert motorists to those types of conditions if they're present. There's a list of common issues that an auditor might pick up at intersections, and we've talked about some of these. I encourage you to look to the checklists in the Guide to Road Safety Part 6, especially if you're a new auditor. It's a good idea to print out and take the checklist that's appropriate to the design or the audit stage that you're undertaking. Take that out on site with you. Chances are that a fair number of the issues on that list won't apply to your particular audit. It's a very exhaustive list, but it's a good practice to have it in your hand and make sure that you're thinking about all the right things. So there is one for each of the design stages of audit. There's one for existing conditions audits. There's a checklist for post-opening audits as well. So that's a good resource. At intersections, we're largely thinking about potential for conflict between different road users. That might be vehicles making conflicting movements at intersections. It might be pedestrians or other road users that are attracted to that location and crossing the road. We're thinking about swept paths and all of those types of things that we talked about earlier. If there are any questions about any of the issues listed there, or anything else that anyone would like to raise around intersections, please do so.
Nothing yet, Jamie. So yeah, maybe jump onto some mid-block ones and see how we're going there.
Sure.
Oh, Jamie seems to have paused on my end. Not sure if it's me who's paused or Jamie, but I'm going to just run through a few of these. And so we've got roadside hazards, obviously. Visual deceit, which Jamie has paused. Okay, good, thank you. Visual deceit, meaning, and we talked about that in the first module, different line marking issues, short turn lanes, and I'll pop in a prize for the crash type that that you think. There we go. He's completely disappeared now. Short turn lanes. What would possibly be the crash type we'd be concerned with if turn lanes are too short? Any thoughts on that? Good, Michael in there nicely with up front there with rear end, and side swipe's a good one as well. But we'll give Michael the prize. So yeah, we want to have a think about the storage we're expecting and what's going to happen there. So let me just write that down. And Tony, it looks like Tony has arrived. G'day, Tony. We'll be with you shortly, and I'll make it so your video can come on and we can see your lovely face. I'll get to that in a second. We're just finishing off Jamie's. He dropped out. Internet down in Hamilton failed on him. But I'm just finishing off his content. I'm sure he'll probably log back in shortly. Sorry, I'm going to get Jamie's content up and running. Here we go. So visual deceit. Yeah, line marking, short turn lanes, incorrect signage, reflectivity issues with signs. So that'll be in your existing conditions audits mainly. But you may be looking at an upgrade of a road and there are existing signs and they're going to stay there, it looks like, but they're very old or faded or not retro-reflective. And so they're worth commenting on. And so when they're doing that work, they can upgrade those as well. Barriers, I mean, there's so much in barriers. Jamie and I and a few others run a 3-day barrier course because there's that much to really nut out in the specifics of barriers. So I mean, I flag that if you're undertaking a road safety audit and there are barriers involved, if you're not a barrier person, make sure you get somebody in the team that is, so they can really nut some of those specifics out. Delineation can be misleading. So the signs, the lines, the RRPMs, drop-off, skid resistance issues. Now, skid resistance is an interesting one. I mean, you're not going to you're not going to request scrim data or like skid resistance data as part of your road safety audit. But if you notice something out there or you think, oh, it looks a bit polished up or the like, that might be something you'd think about. Pavement defects, drainage. Drainage is an interesting one because a lot of people, mid-block is a term that we use, like, which is basically anything between intersections. So the lengths of roads that don't have intersections is mid-block. So these are all, things to think about in those sections between intersections. Drainage is an interesting one. And so that's important that you have a think about your drainage plan and you have a look at that in these detailed design stages or even sort of feasibility stages and think, is there going to be water potentially pooling? Are there going to be aquaplaning issues? Is this going to make pedestrians walk around big, pools of water into more dangerous areas? Short merge, blind merge. So a point where a lane merge happens just over a crest is going to be particularly problematic. And so we can try and weed those out at the early stages. Different access points, vertical alignment issues and stopping sight distance, which we talked about. It looks like Jamie's back with us.
Yes, apologies. Internet dropped out. I can't turn my video on, but it's probably okay.
That's all right. We're going to take a little break now. I don't think. Sorry, I'm just doing a couple of things here behind the scenes. So now both Jamie and Tony should be able to turn their video on. Okay, there we go. Tim's pointing out that we talk prompt lists now, and we just got to make sure all of our slides are updated to say prompt list rather than checklist. So thank you, Tim, for pointing that out. Okay, so before we jump on to construction sites, we'll check if anybody has any questions for Jamie. Okay. Well, looks like everybody's happy. Thank you, Jamie.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, good. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a short break, and I'll just make sure Tony is able to share his slides and turn his camera on and everything. And so we'll be back in 5 minutes, and we'll have a little chat about construction sites. And there we go. We can see Tony already. So 5 minutes, 4.5 minutes now, and we'll get back into it.
Hi, Ken.
Good, Tony. How are you going?
Oh, going well, thank you.
That's the way.
Cold,
yeah.
though. It's this cold snap continues.
Yes. Well, we had a couple of nice warmer days the other week, but back to winter and getting a nice sea breeze there, no doubt.
It's sea breeze. I'd call it Arctic.
Now, can you share your slides?
How's that look?
Yeah, good. We can see the screen.
Hold on, let's
good.
just. Sorry, I should have done that first.
No, that's all right. Oh, good. I think that's.
Come on, why isn't that doing? There we go.
Yeah.
Is that good for you?
Hasn't quite come through.
I reckon because it. I'll unshare again. Stop share. I didn't put it in presentation mode, and it.
Right.
And if I go to screen one.
Yep. Okay. Now, if you go up to where it says display settings up the top, because we're seeing both your, we're seeing the presenter view. So if you go to display settings up the top, in the middle, left. Yeah. Right. A little bit right now. Display settings.
Oh, where are we going? Participants, chat, QA, polls.
Oh, no. Sorry. On your presenter view, where your mouse is now, straight up.
Yep.
Straight up. Yep. Display settings. Yep. Up a little bit more.
I can't see that.
I think we're seeing something.
Oh, close.
That's all right. That's all right. Do a you're using two screens, yeah?
Oh, yeah, I've got three.
Oh, okay. Well, if you go share screen and just make sure you share the one with the full presentation when you do that, because you shared the one with the yeah, okay, we've got a background there. Yep. Now, oh. No, we're seeing just a blank desktop. So if you go back to whatever you had, that where you minimized it, if you see in the PowerPoint up the top, just up a little bit with your cursor, right, there.
That just, I'm hitting on participants.
Oh. So
yeah.
I'm seeing your mouse on display settings in the
Can I just minimize that? There we go.
Is that it? Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes. Either of those will work. Yeah, we got there. Beautiful.
So that is showing the presentation.
It is showing the presentation now. I've got it there. Yep. And there's your lovely face. So
Righto.
we'll be ready. Perfect timing. Everybody's having a break. So we're ready to go.
Hey, Ken, you're recording this, aren't you?
I am.
Would I be able to get a copy of this little segment?
Definitely. Yep.
Beautiful.
I'll make a note of that.
I've started my Cert 4 in training and assessment.
Oh, yeah, your refresher.
Yes, again.
Yeah, I've mine's a little old as well, so I have to at some point get to refreshing and updating. No. Okay. Beautifully done. Okay. We'll give 30 more seconds and we'll get started.
You're doing another one of these this year?
I think so, yeah. I think there's one more scheduled in November or something. And yeah, we've got to catch up at some point, Tony. I'll come down and we'll have a coffee.
Yep, absolutely.
When do you finish up?
28th of October.
28th of October, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, because our teacher assessor needs to see you doing a training session.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm not too sure whether recording or whether she needs to be in the room to, or I invite her. I might have to get you to send her an invite.
Yeah.
To the session. So yeah. Anyway, we'll reach when I discuss it a bit further at the class level.
Okay. All right. Well, let's get back into it, and hopefully everybody's had their stretch break and refilled their coffee. And you may have heard a little bit of chatting there with Tony if you were back in your seats early. But Tony Bull from the Department of Transport in Victoria, and we asked Tony to come along and talk to us a little bit on construction sites and road safety around construction sites and the auditing we do. And the reason we do that is Tony is super passionate, super experienced in terms of construction site safety, has worked in a variety of places, he'll tell you, not just on Australian soil, but in other countries, trying to help keep workers and road users safe during construction activities. Yeah, he's, I think, currently in his last few months there is it program manager of maintenance, or is it jumped to another role under one of the many restructures?
Yeah, it's a new name now, Ken. I'm carrying two at the moment.
Okay, I'll let you unveil those when you get started. But Tony, I was talking to Tony about presenting on construction site safety and road safety auditing around construction sites, and he said, "Yep, beautiful. How many days have I got to present?" And I said, "Oh, Tony, we're going to cram it in just a little window into the stuff." So what he's done is also provided a recording of a longer discussion around construction site safety and road safety auditing around construction sites, which we have uploaded to the learning management system. So what you're going to get is just the short little cliff notes of the longer session for those that are interested in it. But over to you, Tony.
All right, thanks very much, Ken, and welcome everybody. Thank you for your time. And look, I really encourage you that if there's any questions along the way, pop them in the chat. Ken will give me a hoy if we need to answer any of those questions, because, yeah, I'd like to. And while we're not in a sort of a group session in a classroom type activity, I do encourage any discussion we can have in that basis with the technology we have. So I would certainly encourage that. So as Ken said, I'm with the Department of Transport. I've been there over 38 years now, and many different roles in the organisation, but mainly in the fields of road construction and road maintenance. I'm on two committees. One is the Austroads, looking at the guidance material. I'll talk about that a little bit in more detail in a minute or two, but while I'm thinking of it, there are copies of those Austroads guidance material in your handout packs. So, I really encourage you to, if you're going down this path of auditing, especially at construction sites, that you have a bit of a look at those. You don't have to read them from cover to cover. There's a lot of information, but it's really relevant to the industry now. Most states have taken them on board. We were probably one of the slower ones in Victoria to take them on board, but now we've got them as part of our code of practice. So moving forward, the Austroads guides will become the way that we our reference material along with the Australian standard, which I'm on that committee, 1742 Part 3. And again, I would encourage you to obtain a copy of that just to familiarise yourself with some of those standards, the requirements in that standard. It just will make your job a little bit easier when you're doing road safety audits at construction sites. I've done a lot of training in this road safety audit space. I think I'm close to 20 years of doing this one. So, and I keep coming back. I really enjoy this side of my work. It's really great, and I know that we're not as interactive as we'd like, but I enjoy trying to impart on my knowledge, and so we can continue to work towards a safer working environment. It's so important that at the start of the day we go home in the same condition we came to work in. That's our right within our working environment here in Australia and New Zealand, that we are provided that right, and we need to make sure we continually try to improve the safety at our roadwork sites. It's a high risk environment. You're putting workers within traffic, and we must continue to try and work in a way that we're protecting people from that traffic.
Now, Tony, I might just check. We're still seeing the cover slide. There you go. Yep, that's moving.
I was looking at the wrong screen, Ken. Thank you.
Okay, no worries.
Cheers. With my areas of, I suppose, of expertise is this worksite safety, traffic management. Done a lot of project management, road construction, road maintenance, and asset management, which is my current role. Victoria is going down a path of a new way of delivering our road maintenance. We did have alliance contracts. We had self-delivery. We've had lump sum contracts. So we're trying to make it all the same here in Victoria, across regional Victoria, and then into the metro area. But also I've had the privilege of working in overseas, providing this training and information and update of codes of practice in Indonesia, Dubai and the Philippines. So been very fortunate in my working life with Vic Roads, Department of Transport, and any predecessing names we've had. So, this is an area that I've been in a long time, but I continue to try and work towards that safer working environment. This is just this is just a little demonstration on what is perceived as the right thing. And we're unfortunately, if I'm the project manager at a construction site, I have blinkers on. My real focus is getting the job done. And I need sometimes that outside person to come in, or team to come in and do an audit on my site, especially a road safety audit. And I don't know whether Ken's sort of gone into much detail, the difference between a surveillance or an inspection versus an audit, and especially a road safety audit. And this is, while we should familiarise ourselves with standards and guidance material, it's our expertise and understanding of what safety looks like, and the potential for an accident that could occur, or the potential for harm to whether it be the travelling public or to workers. So it's to look at that safety environment. We do have checklists or reference questions that we should be looking at or considering as part of the road safety audit. And Ken will go into a little bit more detail in those after my session. But it's really important that you have that open set of eyes, that you look at the job in its entirety and the potential that something might go wrong or could go wrong, and therefore it needs to be identified, and it's part of your recommendations of whether it should be attended to straight away, or perhaps in the next week you should be looking at doing something different. So it's really important that it's just not a tick and flick process. This is driving through the job at daytime and nighttime environment, looking at what are the safety problems that you encounter or could encounter, and reporting on those. So this is the car park in the Warrnambool office, where I haven't really been for the last 2.5 years, but we've got dots there that depict how we should park, and whether it should be 45 or 90 degrees. All my time, I've always thought it was 90 degrees, but as you can see, one of the customers thought the dots were for 45. And this is where, and this is just a very basic example of what people can perceive of the message that we're trying to portray to the travelling public at our construction work sites. If we haven't got our delineation right, if we haven't got our advance warning right, if we are putting hazards in the way that will cause confusion, or our signing can cause confusion between our temporary signing and our permanent signing, this is what we end up with people not really understanding whether it's a 90-degree parking or it's 45-degree parking. So, we must ensure that the message we're portraying, and with traffic management, signing is our big tool that we use, and so therefore we must try and cover off of the message we're trying to get the travelling public safely through our work site at a speed that is acceptable for worker safety, and so therefore we must ensure that we're covering that off. Just putting up a 40-kilometre-an-hour sign will not ensure that traffic will travel at 40 kilometres an hour. And this is another important role of our audit process, is to ensure that the site has been signed to ensure it matches what we're trying to achieve. If our workers are in a confined area, it may be working over 100, 200 metre area, we need to sign that down, or a way that is protecting those workers. Outside of that, do we need to have a lower speed? Probably not. But unfortunately, people think, well, I'm going to be working over a distance of 600, 700, 800 metres in one day. I'll just set my signs up to cover that distance. But if you're at one end of the job and a car or a truck is coming through that site, they slow down to 40k an hour as you've got it signed, they see nothing, they slowly creep up, their speed gets a little bit faster because they can't see any reason for doing this speed, then all of a sudden you're coming across the workers, that vehicle is not doing the safe speed, all of a sudden you're putting those workers at risk by the lack of probably signing to ensure the worker safety. We just can't have long lengths of low speeds without any reason. So as auditors, we need to make sure we're covering that off as part of our assessments. So I've just got a little bit into the road safety audit versus the compliance, codes of practices and standards. And And as I said, that the road safety audit part is to ensure we are looking at that safety aspect and not just a checklist where we're giving a score or yes or no answers. This is an assessment of the site to make sure that we're looking at all those safety items that, as I said, that could potentially cause harm or grief, whether to be to our workers or to the travelling public. So it's really important we get this part right. And it's the same with any other audit you're conducting as a road safety audit, whether it be a design audit or a post-completion audit. It's looking at those potential safety aspects that have been overlooked, installed incorrectly, the plans haven't been followed properly. It may be just a misinterpretation of the plans and what has been put out on the road. So it's really important that we make sure that from a road safety point of view, we're looking at those issues and that need to be managed. And this is the Austroads guides that I was mentioning. There's 10 parts, and we've really moved in a way that going from the Australian standard, it had a lot of guidance material in it. So the Australian standard 1740 part 42 part 3, it's the standards that we need to follow. It's the signs that are available for traffic management. And it's the things that you must do, the standard that you must meet. Moving into the Austroads guides, while they are termed guides, they are still seen as industry best practice. So they're the people who are operating or using these guides and they deviate from these guides, they've got to have very good documented reasons why they're not meeting the requirements of this guide. And again, and that's why it's good to have an understanding of these guides so that if you see there's a deviation, that you can ask the question. And if there's no documented evidence, well, then that's an observation or something you believe that I'll call them contractor or the person working on our road, whether it be a utility service provider, that there has to be a reason why there's a change away from these guides. And, we do end up with, unfortunately, this type of signing. This was a power core job near Geelong on the Hamilton Highway. I pulled up and said to the contractor or the power core guy, why is the signing incorrect? You're putting yourselves in danger by having this incorrect signing. And his response was, it's not my worry, it's the traffic management company. It is his worry. He's the responsible authority who is working on our road. They've got permission to work on our road, and it's that company's responsibility. You just cannot hand that responsibility to the traffic management company. We expect the traffic management company to meet our needs, but at the end of the day, what happened was they didn't have enough signs to cover up the 100k an hour. And so they thought, well, I'll just put the 40 near the 100, hoping that the traffic does 40k an hour because there was workers on the road, just up the road a little bit. So it's really important that we get these things right so we can continue to make sure we're providing as best as possible a safe working environment. Why are we doing all this? It's a pretty long list, but it's roadwork sites typically involve a change in speed environment. My face was in the right of the slide, sorry. Change in speed environment, additional conflicts, confined road space. We're changing the environment that people are normally operate on. And, if someone who travels a particular way to work on a regular basis, all of a sudden we put roadworks in their normal travel, we can become a little bit blasé on the way we drive, especially we travel that same route every day. And all of a sudden we change something. And that's why I said earlier, we must make sure that we're signed in a way that people can follow what we're trying to achieve. We're giving them advance warning. We're telling them that what potentially they're going to come across. We're going to tell them what lane status we're going to have. We're going to give them delineation, so there's a travel path that they've got to follow. It's these type of changes that we need to ensure that are in place, so we don't end up with any conflicts within our roadworks. Traffic arrangement during roadworks can change several times, and as I mentioned, it doesn't actually resemble what the permanent arrangements look like. And audits at design stage can give sometimes little indication of the safety of temporary work. So and that's why it's important. Yes, we should be doing audits for complex works at the design stage, but we should need to follow that up with audits very early when it's been implemented and the construction works have commenced. Sometimes, as I mentioned, our contracting partners may not get a full appreciation of what traffic management is. They, so often get a traffic management company in to manage that for them. And therefore they may not have that appreciation. So it's really important that, as auditors, and I keep harping on this, that we need to ensure that safety aspect of that site is continued to be monitored and managed and doesn't become out of date because of the changes in what's happened at the site. We need to check the standard arrangement applied for consistency, and this becomes a bit of an issue. And that's why we've got these national guidance material now for Australia and New Zealand now, that, whether you're in Queensland or in Victoria, we should be seeing the same types of signs, the same types of setups to manage our roadwork. So, that's the ultimate aim. We want to avoid conflicting messages from our permanent and temporary devices. We want to check that all signs are used for their correct purposes. I too often see prepare to stop. It should only be associated with traffic controllers. And what other device? Quickly in the chat, what should prepare to stop be used for? We got anything, Ken?
Not yet. I think just typing. Got traffic controllers, traffic signals, lights.
Yep.
Roadworks ahead.
No. And that's the
reduce speeds.
And that's the point I wanted to make, Ken. And I thank those, and well done to someone who said it should be associated with the traffic controllers and or portable traffic signals or permanent traffic signals or semi-permanent we use at roadworks. Yes, I'll see prepare to stop associated with the roadwork ahead sign. It has to go with the traffic controller or traffic signal sign. So it's the message to the public that there's a device or a person up ahead that you may have to stop. So and that's where that association is, and that's why the colour of it is in the colours of a regulatory type sign. So that's you make sure that signs are used for their correct purpose. And also they're taken down at the end of the working day. If there's no workers, please don't have worker symbolic signs up. Don't have your prepare to stop signs up. Have your aftercare, have your skidding cars, have your stone throwings. It may be you do need speed management, but we shouldn't be using 40k an hour if we're not using that to protect workers. We should be able to make the site as safe as possible, where the lowest speed we should go to is 60k an hour. I know there's always exception to the rules, and again, as auditors, we need to delve into that. If our aftercare audit or nighttime inspection is looking at that signing and the site is down to 40k an hour, there needs to be really good documented evidence of why that site has been left at 40k an hour when there's no workers present. And, I really would like to push that one. So, yeah, we've got the safety of our workers and also the personnel. And, we want to make sure that if there's a connection or crossing point for the works traffic, that interaction with the public is kept in a safe way. Now, whether it be with traffic controllers, if they're crossing a point where the public are using a road, whether we use traffic signals, we've just got to make sure that that crossing point is kept safe. Ken, I'll also ask you to give me a bit of a warning when I should stop talking. You know me.
Okay. No,
I get a little bit wrapped up in the moment.
Yeah, no, I like the passion. Yeah, a good 10 or 12 more minutes is fine, Tony.
All right, thanks, Ken. And no questions have come through because, as I said, I'm happy to open the discussion up at any time if there's anybody who's got any burning questions along the way.
Okay, thanks.
But and the photo in front, and sometimes there's groups of users of our road network that we often forget when we're setting up our traffic control. We think of our cars and trucks and to some extent motorbikes, but then we forget about the cyclists and the pedestrians. And I will pose this question to the group, if we can get an answer, please, Ken, is with our pedestrian, what group of pedestrians does a sign, a written sign, doesn't help in any way, shape or form?
All right. So while that some comments come on in that, Bob made a comment there around the removal or adjustment of temporary road signs when work is paused or completed is very important to ensure that the public continues to have confidence in obeying the signs. I think it's a good point.
That's a really great point, and I think there's a chocolate frog. Did you?
Okay, I'm noting that. Yeah,
absolutely. Because I went through a site the other day, Ken, and it really hit home that very reason. It was a new asphalt job. They had their flip-flops down, so there was no lines marked, signing up. But then the next day I went through that job, the line marking is all being completed. And for whatever reason, and I could not see it, why the 60 was still up. It was in a 70k zone. They had it signed down to 60. The line marking had been reinstated, and there was no lines marked sign was still up. It's really frustrating when that type of the line markers should be able to see that, yes, we've now got lines on this job. Those signs are no longer required. Or the contractor or the project manager needs to make sure that that signing is removed. And the other one also that's regarding that is that when the project is completed, that has there any signing that should be permanently put up that we've had temporarily in place? And it might be a give way, it could be a stop sign, it might be a speed advisory, curve advisory speed. It might be the curve alignment markers. Has all that been put in place after the roadwork signing has been taken down? So that's a really good point to make. And maybe it is an ideal time to also get a road safety officer or road safety auditor in and to do that final check to ensure that there's no opportunity or not opportunity, that there's no signing that hasn't been installed or been removed that no longer is applicable to that site. So great.
Yeah, that post-opening road safety audit, often you find lingering things like that will pop up. In terms of this one, Megan has jumped in there saying blind pedestrians.
Visually impaired, absolutely. And this photo that I've got in front, thanks, Megan.
Prize for Megan there. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. Is a great demonstration of that. This is High Street the street up top is High Street in Geelong. And, there's supermarkets on either side. This, I think I took this photo around about, 5, 6 o'clock at night. So the workers have gone and they've just put this bunting up, this plastic mesh up, because there's an area that they're waiting for the concrete truck to come tomorrow or the next day to fill in that area where the concrete was cracked. We're forcing people out onto a busy road the photo probably doesn't give the appreciation. It's quite a steep embankment from the footpath down to the road. And if you're visually impaired or your mobility isn't quite as good as you would like, all of a sudden you're daunted with a way of trying to get around this on this footpath. It could be backfilled with some crushed rock. Yes, it needs a little bit of additional work, but plan for that where you can still continue to operate that path in a way. During the working day, you could have someone there to assist people to cross the road. Have a traffic controller there to help the pedestrians, whether they've got to cross the road or just help them around the work site. But to leave that overnight, to me, is just not acceptable.
Great questions come in on that. Tony.
Yes.
Sorry to jump in.
Yep.
Around what could be done for visually impaired pedestrians, and also there's a really good comment about that. Sort of reiterating what you're saying, Michael. They're seeing a lot of that, thinking that pedestrian closed sign does the job, which it certainly doesn't. But any ideas on how you might assist a visually impaired pedestrian through these sorts of areas?
Yeah, and the visually impaired will know the route they're taking, their normal path to follow, and that's sort of and that's why we have the DDA to let them know when they're getting to intersections or crossing points or alike. So this we would need to make sure that outside, and that, as I said, during the working hours, let's have a dedicated person available to help the visually impaired get around this site. We can't have them going through it. Outside of the working hour, we should be providing a path that of a compacted crushed rock base so that they can still use this site. Or the alternative is we have to provide a crossing point, and that becomes quite difficult with a small job like this. So that's why I say that the little bit extra work at the end of the day, let's put a crushed rock base down so that path is to be able to be utilised by pedestrians. A person with a pram, that would be a really difficult site to try and get around. And so therefore, if we provide that solid base, crushed rock path for them to use overnight, the next day, we've got to take a bit of crushed rock out. It adds about 10, 15 minutes to the job. Get the concrete in, get it set. Again, traffic controllers to while it's going off, but just don't close a footpath like that. It really does become a situation that could cause difficulty for many people.
Yep. Thanks, Tony.
Incorrect signing is another one we see out there, and and this is where the Australian standard will come into play. It'll tell you what a sign like this should look like and what it should be made up of. It'll tell you it should be red writing on a white background, so it becomes a regulatory sign that you've got to stop here on the red signal. But the manufacturer here, for whatever reason, they thought, well, roadwork signs are normally black writing on a yellow background. That's what we'll provide. But unfortunately, it's not the correct sign for this portable traffic situation. So, we as auditors, we should be making sure that we're picking up on minor issues like this to ensure that the legality side of it is we're ensure that it's in place. Even down to if there's speed management, we've lowered the speed. Please, one of the first questions you should be asking of the person who's looking after the job is, have you got a memorandum of authorisation to actually reduce the speed on this road? You need that approval from the Department of Transport to reduce that sign, to change any major traffic control items or install major traffic control items. You need that memorandum of authorisation. And we've gone to an automated, well, not totally automated, but an online application process. It does have its moments where it can become a little bit long-winded, unfortunately, but it's part of that. We need to ensure that you do have that MOA or memorandum of authorisation for changing major traffic control items at roadworks. Um,
5 more minutes, Tony.
Thanks, Ken. Quick question for the group. We have 2 stop signs here. Apart from shape, what's the difference between those 2 stop signs?
Difference in their meaning, or difference, is that?
Yeah,
what
difference.
you're-
Well, what we as motorists have to do or can do, or road users, I should say.
Okay.
Although that's an interesting point about a traffic controller with a stop bat for pedestrians. They actually don't have to comply with it because there's not a rule that says they have to, because they're not a driver.
Right. There you go.
So that's but you know, we do use it to help manage pedestrians, but yeah, we shouldn't really be using them.
Okay, so a number of different things have come in. I think David summed it up nicely to keep us moving along. Stop until the sign disappears for the round one. Stop until clear to proceed with the hexagon.
Excellent. Yeah. Well done, David. And that's exactly right. That the round one, we'll just get people to quickly answer this. Where else do you see the round one being used? Not only at roadworks. We also see that.
They've come in with well, school crossing. Schools is what you're going for. That's coming in fast. Rail was popped in there. I think that's around rail when they're doing works at rail. That's a whole different area of requirements for rail, Ken. And that's why we can't use any of our devices within that 3 metre area of a rail, because the red to a train operator or train driver means, hey, danger, stop. And that's, you know, the red flag to them is we need to pull all stops out here to get this train pulled up. So we can't operate within 3 metres of a rail line. And that's where we need to get the rail operator involved if we need to do traffic management in that space. So that's a whole another training session from a rail person, but let's keep outside the 3 metres. That's really it. Yeah. Good advice. All right, let's keep ticking along.
Okay, let's go. So yes, we can't use that. What have we got? 8-sided sign for traffic control, because as David said, that a driver may like to proceed on because they've stopped. There's nothing coming, but they're not aware that the grader is about to pull out and will be an issue. So yeah, we must use the round stop slow bat. And as you can see, you know, a well dressed traffic controller in this instance. So looking at when to audit, we can review the plans of guidance scheme. We need to inspect the site at daytime. Early in the beginning of the construction site, we should be doing inspection, and both day and night. And if there's been any major changes to that scheme, we need to inspect both day and night. So, you know, the message is here. We've got different stages of construction. We've got the plans. We've got early in the job. We've got where there's been major changes, but you must do inspections both day and night. You cannot undertake a road safety audit without just with that one visit. We need to make sure we get there twice to make sure that the aftercare is being managed. And look at that. I have a list of common issues there, and we've probably talked about most of these through the presentation. But you know, have we got the adequacy of advance warning? Are the posted speed limits appropriate? The selected layout, is it achieving what we need to achieve? Are there conflict points that are being managed? Is there anything that could be misread by the users? Are the signs kept clean? Is mud or dust obscuring any of our devices? Are they being managed on a daily basis to ensure that? And that's another reason for doing a night inspection. If you've got signs that have got dust or mud on them, reading them at night under headlights, they become really obscured and may not be being effective. Traffic barriers, they need to be installed to the manufacturer's specification. There is a document, and I think, Ken, you included in there the suite of information provided in this course is the barriers that have been approved for use in Victoria.
I'm not sure I have. I'll pop it in there. Road Design Note 604. I can certainly pop that in.
Because that is one document that I see has regular updates, Ken. So it's certainly for people to keep on top of that one. Is a good one to have available in their arsenal. Pedestrians and adequate cyclists, I mentioned them earlier, sometimes are the forgotten road users, and especially if we're not providing an adequate surface for them to ride on. Puncturing tyres is not a happy place for a cyclist. And very quickly, and as I said, Ken will go through this in a lot more detail after my session, but it's what's the new name for them, Ken? It's not a checklist anymore?
Prompt lists now. Tony.
Prompt. I probably should change the slide. Prompt list. So, but there's just a few items on that list, and as I said, Ken will go. But just to help you with your audit. But as I said, it's not the be-all and the final list of things that you should be looking at. They're just to help you with your audit when you're out on site. But as I said, it's that observation from that fresh set of eyes, looking at a job to make sure that it's operating safely. And you've got these lists that can help you with that assessment. I think that'll do me, Ken. If there's any other burning questions that people might have before I pass back to yourself.
You've done a beautiful job there, Tony. And again, apologies for giving you only a short time slot, but you've done well to cover it off there. And everybody can watch the longer version, and Tony's contact details are at the front of his slide, so you're able to get in contact if you do have follow-up questions. Thanks, Tony.
Absolutely.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Good on you. Thanks very much, Ken. Thanks, everyone.
Okay. Now, I've got a couple of things to jump into. Firstly, I want to, pick up where Tony left off there around prompt sheets. So hopefully you're seeing my series of prompt lists, as we're now calling them. So in the new part 6, there in the appendix in section H there, the first thing that there is this what we call front-loaded questions. They're generic questions about the context of the project or the site or what's happening there. Now, there's some space for you to jot your own notes around. You don't hand this in, but this is just helping you get some context around it. So they're what we call the front-loaded questions. Then prompt lists H3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, you can see there local alignment, general aspects, intersections, walking and cycling, traffic signs, line marking, and lighting. They are all then put in this feasibility, preliminary, detailed, pre-opening, and existing roads as prompt questions for you. Questions to start you thinking. Tony said it beautifully, they're not the be-all and end-all. I mean, that's not going to cover off absolutely everything, so you need to be generally looking at the site, but they're a really great place to start and help you thinking. To thought starters only, stand back and look broadly at the project, look at it from just that common sense perspective. There will be a huge amount of things in these prompt lists that you will go, well, that's not applicable, because they're trying to cover off all the road scenarios out there, motorways, local roads, intersections, mid-blocks, everything. And so you will a lot of the time write not applicable, or you'll just ignore that one, but at least it's prompted you to think about it. You do not submit prompt lists as part of your road safety audit. So you might have pages and pages of these prompt lists where you've written notes or you've said not applicable or the like. None of that gets handed in. All you do in your audit report is things that you have identified as issues. So that's their prompt lists. Now, they are in the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6. and that is in the resources in the learning management system, which I'll take you through shortly. Okay. Now, pop your questions in as we go, but I'm going to give you your assignment now. So we're getting into some of the pointy end of this course now. You've got some good content. You've done your research assignment, and well done on that. And if I get time at the end of this session, I'll give out some prizes on those. If not, we'll do it at the start of next session. But you're going to do now a bit of practice in finding issues and then writing them up. And then that will get you perfectly set up to undertake your mock road safety audit at a site near your home or office or whatever address you gave us. So what we're going to do is a bit of this 360-degree auditing. Sorry, I was just reading a comment there about Wally's. Yeah, you've got to keep your eye out for Wally. Be elusive. So what we're doing now is undertaking a little bit of a desktop practice. I call it practice because you really can't do road safety audits from in their totality from just the desktop or even Street View or anything like that. You've got to get out there onto the site. But this is a pretty good way to practice getting things going. So what we've got here is a design. And it's a design of a new set of traffic signals at an intersection where there currently is a roundabout, sort of oval-shaped roundabout, okay? So what you're going to be doing is looking at this design and commenting on safety issues when they build the signals, not what's currently there, but when the signals are built, okay? So you've got the design there. You can see you got your road coming through there. There you've got multiple lanes, slip lanes, bus stops, and the like. So we'll provide you with those. And you're going to look through them, and there's a few lead-in plans. But what we've also done is provided you with some 360-degree footage of the existing road environment, okay? Now, we're not wanting you to do the audit on the existing road environment. You're doing the audit on the future when it's signalized. But what we want you to use this for is to understand the site, okay? Understand what's existing there, how are things going to be changed, how are people using it, what's the land use, all of these sorts of things. So the way you do this is to bring up the PDF of this, and I'll show you where you get all this shortly. And then you can click on any of these little cameras and it will jump you to a 360-degree, well, of a drone burning something down. Hang on a second. I'm going to skip this. There you go. You get 360-degree footage of the site from that point. And you can move this around and you can look at what's going on, how people use it, what's happening there. You can look up and around. And so this is what is existing. Remember, you're not auditing the existing conditions, you're auditing what's there, but this really helps you understand the site. Now, if you've got the goggles, you can put your phone into them and move your head around, and it's you know, it's like kind of like you're out on site. It's really not as good, but it's a little bit of fun to try that. So you get a couple of minutes of footage on each one of these that you can use, and it's quite helpful because you know you'll be able to see from different spots, different bits and pieces. You can see that there's a Danish sort of offset style crossing there. You can see the land use. You can see where pedestrian desire lines would be. You can see whether there's lighting and the like. So that's all there to help you. You've got a bit of information about traffic volumes and the like, and you can do it from your desktop computer. But if you want to try it on your phone with the moving around, give it a go. It's a bit of fun. So you've got then some instructions on what we're going to ask you to do. And we're going to ask you to look at the designs, look at the existing conditions, and find 2 safety concerns about the design or how that design is going to interact with the road environment. And then write those 2 up properly. That's all we want. You just want 2. Okay. We've given you an example one. It's that one I took you through, so you know what it looks like. But what I'm going to do is jump into the learning management system here, and you can see you've got your reference documents and resources, which is where you'll be able to find the Austroads Guide to Road Safety Part 6, which is where you'll be able to find those prompt lists if you'd like to use that. Road Design Noto 604, as we talked about with Tony just there, they're the accepted barrier products, just in case you wanted to find that. But you can always get that off Department of Transport website, and I always encourage you to do that because they sometimes update it and then you've got an old one. But if we go back here and we go down a little bit further, you're probably feeling quite comfortable with all of this now. We're down here and we go to writing road safety audit findings. This is where we want to go. And in here, you'll see you've got the sites for 360-degree filming, or they have been filmed now. So that's a PDF. That's that one where you've got the links to jump in there. You've got the functional design and you can see there's the design. It's an actual design. We didn't fabricate it. It's a real design there. But you should be able to identify some issues that you would like to report on. So you've got those there. And you get a Word document here. You get the Word document, which is what you're going to be filling out. Just wait for that to open up. And you can see there that it's got instructions. It's got your tasks laid out there, 1 to 7, right? Follow those tasks. We've even given you some tips, some notes, some things to help you out. We've put the risk matrix to help you in assessing the risk. So use the risk matrix. We've given an example here. Okay, so it's different site completely, but it helps you tick along. And then there's 2 rows here, and we want you to put your findings in there, risk rate them, put your recommendations in there, and you leave this blank because that's a reminder to whoever gets this that they've got to do something with it. You always leave that responsible officer blank as the auditor to remind people when they receive an audit report, hey, do something with this. Okay, so remember to follow that formula or recipe we talked about, okay? Put a snip in there, okay? That's going to make it a lot easier. So if you are working away on the design and maybe you're interested in, I don't know, something possibly to do with the slip lane there, well, we take a snip of that slip lane. You're particularly interested in that slip lane, and we, bring it in here. We drop it in there, and then we're able to write about the slip lane, and it's there. We could even maybe put a little circle around it because that's exactly what we're interested in. And make it red. There we go. It's already clear where the point we're talking about. And then you can write some information in there following that. So that's what we'd like to see. Or maybe you even were there and you had some thing of interest in terms of the roundabout, and you were talking about, well, the slip lane is going to come out here or something. Well, you could even take a snip of that if you wanted and pop that in there as well. It depends on, of course, on what you're finding. Anyway, you get the idea. I'm here to help you if you can't find any issues, but I think you might be able to if you think about some of the stuff you've been working on. So then you're going to PDF that and you're going to upload it back into the learning management system, add submission, upload it there, and you're done. Just two issues. Okay, if we go, let's go back to here. I'll see when it's due. It's due on Friday, close of business Friday. So we want you to get that in by then so we can give you some feedback. So when you're doing your mock audit, you've already got some feedback. If you're making some errors, or you're not providing enough information, or you're providing way too much information or something, we can help you, guide you before you get into that that next assignment. You do have a quiz for today, I believe. Let's just double check that. Yep, there's your quiz for today. So jump in and do your quiz. And if you haven't submitted your research assignment, please do so. And I've got 2 minutes, so I'm going to give out the prizes. So research assignments, first of all, I want to say brilliant effort. Well done, everybody. Wonderful stuff. We will drop them all into this research assignment bit so everybody can have a look at them and the like. But technical accuracy goes to Harry for his video on the dilemma zone. Really comprehensive and well done. Creative, most creative, we're going to give joint winners to Mathy for ramp metering and Islam for crash cushion cartoon animation. And we are giving the engaging to David Beck for the short stacking because he got me with pancakes at the start. So thank you to everybody. Lots of people got full marks because of their wonderful stuff. We just had to pick a few for these extra little cherry on top prizes, but well done to everybody. Wonderful effort. And I think you'll enjoy having a look at some of those fact sheets and videos and podcasts and the like that will come in there. So well done to those people. And of course, get in contact if you've got any questions about your assignment, the quizzes, or anything that we've covered so far. Happy to help out. It's just a question that's come in. Can you confirm? We are to document findings associated with the road post-upgrade or findings associated with the temporary stage between existing and upgrade? No. Okay, great question. No, it's once all the signals are completed, the road's open, it's traffic's operating normally, what crashes will happen then? Okay, so the design stage is, putting your mind into the future there. So don't worry about temporary traffic management and how they're temporarily going to do that. That would be a sort of different stage. But we're thinking about the end once it's upgraded. So you've got to try to imagine it as a signalized intersection operating and think about what are the problems, what are the issues associated with that. Please get in contact if you need anything else. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.